operations budget, I just tell you some of the spending cost items in terms of operations. Hotels. They engage over 40 hotels to accommodate delegates. Remember, the athletes are at the Games Village, but we needed to accommodate other delegates at various hotels in the country. So we engage over 40 hotels for that, part of that. Then there's transportation, because we needed to rent buses and rent saloon cars for delegates and what have you. Then there were equipment for athletes that also would go into the operational cost. Then there was the games management system, aka accreditation, which many people had issues with. We spent around $4 million on that. And then there's food, which was another one of the issues that became very profound after the games. $15 million.
Out of West End, so biom into all African Games, a yes scandal no officially. A bona babeda bontin a utie prize na. Dam koku ye boade no say $45 million. According to the overall cost, Sika Kuku Ra All African Games under the former regime. All African Games muno $245 million. Now for $245 million, no accreditation side and dan kweku ye boadin wo mu no omochira cost was somewhere around $2.9 million. Now for ye go deep into the update. Are ba ko omo kan up to now medwe ho amenti ase. At first na esekuliti say eduane omudi ye eno kwa cost $50 million. But later the pedo report about say $15 million. Now for without much delay, mepe say betie nkomo no full details as at to Sika Area Entertainment, because all African Games no na entertainment aspect wom. Apart from entertainment aspect no hotels omo hanye Sika Area mu nyina no in this video no wobeti nyina mepe say obeto obo na wetie nkomo we wo decide now for mami hu adwen che comment
numbers that came out once the budget was known. That left us all shocked. Do you guys want to give us a bit of a recap?
Yeah, so basically we hosted the African Games in 2024 March. Was hosted between March 13 and March 24, I believe.
All right, so almost 2 years ago.
Yes, March 8 to March 24. And you know, that competition was supposed to have been held in August of the previous year. But when the time came, we were not ready. So they had to push back the competition, I think by 8 months or so. And we got the right to host this competition all the way back in 2018, thereabout, a long time ago. And we didn't start preparing for the competition. In fact, we got the right in 2017.
No, it was 29th October 2018.
2018, okay.
It was a time.
So we started to make preparations just around the time COVID hit. And so it delayed the project a little bit. I think Isaac Esiama was then sports minister. And then once COVID was over, we sped up with the preparations. But even with that, as of 2022, we still didn't have any single infrastructure available. So the idea at the beginning was that we were going to build a brand new Olympic stadium, 50,000 capacity in Boteman, which will serve as the venue and the center of the games. But the timelines we were running behind schedule, and they thought that it would need more time to complete the stadium. So they changed the plans. And instead of building a fully equipped stadium to host the games, they decided that it was better to build some adjoining facilities at Boteman and then renovate others across the country to complement the facilities that we put up at Boteman to host the game. They called it the hybrid approach. So for the first time in the history of the games, we ended up hosting the games in 2 cities, in Cape Coast and in Accra. In fact, originally they had said 3, but in the end we used 2 cities. Football was played in Cape Coast, and then in Accra we used Boteman, which had the swimming, the tennis court, and all of those things. And then we used the University of Ghana Stadium, which had the athletic track and also a football pitch. And we had a rugby field at University of Ghana as well. And then we used a lot of different halls. Conference Center ended up hosting table tennis, which was supposed to have been hosted in Boteman. One of the reasons that one was also built. Football in Cape Coast, and then University of Ghana had rugby, weightlifting, and all of those other athletics in particular. It hosted some football matches too, and then the street obviously hosted the cycling competition. The Amasaman Highway hosted the cycling competition. So many things happening around the city at the same time. But I think the reason people had major issues with the organization of the games wasn't just where or what was happening. It was how much was involved in what was happening. So basically what you need to understand is that the African Games expenditure can be split into two. Those that would go into infrastructure, and the aspect of the money that went into operations. And the operations would involve quite a lot of other things, so we'll explain shortly. But the infrastructure basically comprised a number of key facilities. There's so many others, but there are 3 key facilities that have raised eyebrows. We spent $145 million to build the Boteman Sports Complex, which comprises 4 domes. And those 4 domes, one is an open one that is used to host like wrestling competitions and what have you. Then we have a tennis court which has a seating capacity of 1,000 and has adjoining training tennis courts as well. And then we have an indoor dome where we hosted volleyball competitions, and then we have the one where we hosted the swimming competition, so the aquatic center. $145 million flat. The University of Ghana Stadium, we spent $34 million in completing it. That was another facility where per previous interviews from the people managing the facility, like the former director of the University of Ghana Sports Director, Dr. Bella Bitugu, who had said that the stadium was around 80 to 90% complete in the previous interview, and they had been in charge of this stadium since 2004. The government went in and then they said that they needed $34 million to complete the stadium that was at 80% or 90% complete, based on what the managers of the facility had said in the past. And that $34 million went into, I'll give you the scope very shortly.
What was the total budget for the stadium project originally? How much was it supposed to cost to complete?
I think when they started
stadium?
the project back in 2004, supposed to have taken around $4 million.
$4 million.
Kufuor started that project. I went to University of Ghana in 06. I went to meet it. I left it. It still wasn't done. Now, I will put that into context for you to understand, because in the same time, like in 2016, we spent $32 million or so in building the Cape Coast Stadium from scratch. So there is that for you to reference. And only last year, or was it 2 years ago, Takwa Goldfields built a full stadium in Takwa for $60 million from scratch. So that's
that was actually 13 million.
So there's that one too that you can reference. Obviously the scopes are different. Those ones don't have tracks,
but this one, to complete some 20% remaining,
yes,
it cost $34 million.
Yes, please, thank you. And then you have to look at the Games Village. So I was talking about the 3 aspects of the major infrastructure where a lot of the money went into. The money went into some other places, like with the hockey. We had to relay the hockey turf. That came with its own issues. And then we had to do cricket over at Achimota. That came with its own issues as well. And then we had a rugby field. So there were so many other small adjoining facilities. But these are the major ones where the biggest money went to. So Boteman, $145 million. University of Ghana Stadium, $34 million. And then the Games Village, which was also not built from scratch. The diaspora halls, as they call them in the University of Ghana, say Kwapon, Liman, they decided that instead of building accommodation from scratch, they would go there and then refurbish those facilities to host around 5,000 athletes that we were expecting. And what was the scope of work that needed to be done there? The African Games required that every single accommodation facility should have air conditioning and should have water heating, because this is basic. You're hosting people from different temperature zones all around the continent coming, so these things are necessary. And you also needed to, make it look nice, so maybe fix new curtains, maybe new liver blades, I don't know. But you needed to do those things, and that one too was $16 million. $16 million.
So about 170 million cedis.
Yes, to fix air conditioners. They fixed around 1,600 air conditioners, and then they fixed water heaters in all the rooms, all the showers, and then they got new mattresses, obviously.
How many air conditioners?
1,600.
So we're talking about 1,600 rooms, give or take.
Give or take, exactly. And then they put up the temporary tents that they use for they use as a canteen just beside there, so that the athletes could go there and eat. And then I think they put up another one as a temporary medical facility. So basically that's where all the money went to in terms of infrastructure. And then you have the aspect of the money that went into operations. At the time, obviously, as things stand now, we don't know how much money they actually spent on operations, but per the minister, he said they needed $47 million to do operations. This is what he said. So I repeat, we don't know how much they actually got or actually spent, but he said they required $47 million to do operations. And the aspects of the operations budget, I just tell you some of the spending cost items in terms of operations. Hotels, they engage over 40 hotels to accommodate delegates. Remember, the athletes are at the games village, but we needed to accommodate other delegates at various hotels in the country. So we engage over 40 hotels for that part of that. Then there's transportation, because we needed to rent buses and rent saloon cars for delegates and what have you. Then there were equipment for athletes that also would go into the operational cost. Then there was the games management system, aka accreditation, which many people had issues with. We spent around $4 million on that. And then there's food, which was another one of the issues that became very profound after the games. $15 million to feed what they had, or they've told us, were 12,000 people.
So were they feeding those in the hotels as well?
That's a good question, and those are the reasons why these things need to be probed, because the 12,000 people that they say they fed include all the people that also stayed in the hotels, because that would be the total number of delegates that came for the African Games. So if only 5,000 of them were at the University of Ghana hostels, and then you also have volunteers who were coming in on a daily basis, the rest of the people that stayed at the hotel, how did you feed them? And if you did, how many meals did you give them per day? Because the standard figure they are giving us is that they fed 12,000 people 4 meals per day for, they said 20 something days, right, instead of 18.
So they started feeding them from 27th, before some people arrived early, and they ended on 26th.
12,000, obviously, right?
Yeah, not the whole 12,000.
So let's just work on averages. Let's use the number
actually,
of days of the event.
total number of people per what they said it did was 12,923 people, right? And per the agreement that they signed, the hotels too had a responsibility of feeding the people. So according to some documents that I was able to chance on after the LOC had the press engagement last year, Okay, so let me just go through this thing pretty quick, so that we'll have a proper appreciation of what actually happened. So this was it. Accommodation service was $2,238,500. Accreditation games management system was $2.9 million. Fan zones and youth camp was $65,625. Ceremonies and entertainment was $4.6 million. Transport service was $966,000. Games family, that's per diem, was $44,100. And games family Efe was $175,000. Then they came all the way up to broadcasting, where they said it was $5 million. So
the food, the 50 million, is it there?
Yeah, it's 15,106,875.
Not 50 million, 15 million.
15 million.
15. Okay, I just want to do the maths quickly, because the thing is, I want to do some quick maths here.
Okay, so this was what happened. L&M Services Company were those engaged to provide the food. And what they also did was that they engaged people. I was made to understand they engaged about 400 people to work with. They also decided to subcontract the likes of Tasty Trees and Capitol restaurants to provide the food services. But one thing, I don't know, sometimes it's quite interesting. I don't know what I found you. You've been to Capitol to eat breakfast before. How much will it cost to eat breakfast at Capitol?
I don't know, Mufta. You have been.
Kojo is a big man. Kojo, how much do you take breakfast at Capitol?
I haven't eaten breakfast at Capitol before. Please don't try and put me into trouble here.
No, but actually, what I'm actually trying to put across is that, or establish, is that because of the kind of companies that they engaged, sometimes you would look at these figures and go like, okay, if I were to take breakfast at Capitol, maybe let's say it will cost me 200 Ghana cedis or even more. There's lunch, there's supper, and at the time the dollar was around 13 cedis. So if that was what they actually did, I'm just assuming, if that was what they actually did, what it meant was that they were going to feed one person. Let's say breakfast is 200, lunch is 300, let's say dinner is 400. They were going to feed each person around 1,000 Ghana cedis or less, or even more. And if you multiply that by 12,923 people, it will give us a certain figure. But one of the things that I actually was looking at was the fact that the people were fed differently. It wasn't everyone. So let's say someone who was a minister, someone who was an ambassador, someone who was a technical official, the kind of meals they gave those people was different from what they gave to the athletes. So athletes and officials were 7,521 people. So let's say, and in fact volunteers were 3,000 people. So you and I, Samuel Dame and myself, who were supposed to chop the small food, so they were like on like $6 or $7 or even $12. That's how they capped it. And then the big people, they were on like the big figure, like the $50, the $60 and those things. So all in all, per what they were able to compete together, they believe that they spent about 15,106,000.
Mufta, hold on. Hold on. Now, if you go outside the country, there are hotels that would charge you $150, $200, some $100, and it includes breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That includes breakfast.
Yes.
You said that people were here for how long?
16 days.
16 days.
16 days.
But
there were people who arrived earlier, which was on 27th of February.
We have to work with averages, because we can't.
So averagely it's 21 days per what they were putting.
Okay, no problem. 21 days.
Yes, 21.
Average of 21 days.
Yes.
You see,
this
is something that we need to understand. And I'm glad Mufti
why is the average more than the duration of the event?
Sika Boradi we media, I know the by the end of it all, no, you're trained for Auditor General. The report, who send your massive call, say better tally with the Ensaka and I send tally. There are more to come. Now I now understand why Dan Kokuya Boa why worried? Because sikano a modru. Mami, why didn't you comment the subscribe, like it, now share video no for more